All right. We're going to have some fun. Now, I'm not a chiropractor. People ask me, how come this guy with an accent from Brazil is in a chiropractic event? That's a good question. Yes? That's a good question. I came from Brazil, didn't speak the language. After years, ended up getting a job with Tony Robbins. And I started coaching people in speaking. Around 9 years ago, one of my clients, his name is Gary Gunnison, a financial planner, calls me up and says, you got to work with chiropractors. And I'm like, what is chiropractic? That was 9 years ago. And I'm like, I have no clue. He said, well, the best doctors, they do talks. And I'm like, still doesn't mean anything to me, right? A couple months later, pass out, I receive a phone call from Dr. Zeno, say, hey, I'm doing this dinner with the doctors, can you help me out? I was like, okay. So he sent his dinner, he was closing around 60%. I helped him. The next dinner closed 98%. And I'm like, dude, that's crazy. That's how it started. And then one day, Dr. Zeno came to San Diego. I was living in San Diego. And I was so concerned because I had met my wife. And when we met it, and I realized we're going to get married, and she stopped taking birth control pills. And her period never came back. She went to 4 MDs. And you're going through this for a year. And the doctors are saying, you got to stop doing yoga. You got to go back to the pill, giving all this nonsense advice. And I remember asking, hey, is that normal? And Dr. Z said, dude, you're crazy. You haven't heard my talks yet, man. I don't think you pay attention. Go get a chiropractor. Right? The next day, I went and see Dr. Ryan Hummel. Does anybody know Dr. Ryan Hummel? Right? A couple people. And I sit down. He took x-ray of my wife and myself. And right there, a huge subluxation in the lower back. And both, we start care. So a year passed by, 2 years passed by, 3 years passed by. Don't take drugs. We feel amazing. But her period never came back. Never came back. So many nights, I go to bed hugging my wife. And she's crying. Because she thought there's something wrong with her. Fast forward a year, was December 24th in the morning. And I go to San Francisco to spend with her family. And I remember like clear as day, I'm drinking coffee, me and my mom and her mom. And I open the door. My wife wakes up, goes to the bathroom, come back, bawling, crying. Couldn't talk. She goes, like, what happened? She goes, I got my period. And I'm like, are you sure? And she goes, I'm sure. And we hug, and we cry. Fast forward, we got pregnant. By now, my best friends are chiropractors. And they go, you gotta watch the movie, The Business of Being Born. Has anybody watched that? If you haven't, go to Netflix and say, watch The Business of Being Born. It's about natural birth. And my wife goes, I wanna have a natural birth. I say, perfect. We found a birth center in San Diego. And after 22 hours of labor, by the way, ladies, you're so powerful. We have no chance. If you ever, has anybody participated in a natural birth process before? I did twice. I'm like, wow, right? Incredible. So Sophia was born at 10:16 p.m. in the evening. And when she was born, she had amniotic fluid in her lungs, and she wasn't crying, like a baby should cry. And the 2 midwife nurses attached a little machine to measure her oxygen levels. And in California law, if you have a natural birth, you have 12 hours. So after 12 hours, either the baby and the mom are healthy, they go home, or they go to the hospital. And I understand that hospital medicine, they have a time and place for it, but I'm trained by you. And I'm like, man, I don't want to go there. And I never forget, at 5 a.m., I got on my phone. And I text Dr. Ryan Hummel and say, hey, buddy, are you awake? Is there any way you can come here? And I sent a text. And he said this. He said, I was waiting for the call. And he came, 5:30 in the morning. Sophia was 8 hours old. Lay her down. It's like, oh, yeah, she's subluxated. I just heard once on her atlas. And my wife and I are just watching. She's 8 hours old. And then wait 3 minutes, I just heard again. And then we both watching, and he said, she's clear, she's good to go. So Dr. Ryan grabbed Sophia and gave it to my wife. And like a movie, like magic, now I understand like God's hand, God's doing the work. Sophia went like this, threw up, then the aortic fluid that was stuck in her lungs, and gave the most beautiful baby cry. I looked to Dr. Ryan with tears come down his face. He said, did you see the power of the innate? And I'm like, holy smoke. By the way, I said something else, right? That's not, that's different wording. And he goes, I gotta go, because he had to open his clinic. And within half an hour, Sophia was fine. And the 2 midwife nurses came to the room, opened the door and said, what happened? And I said, well, I called my chiropractor. He came in, detected a subluxation of her atlas, adjusted. She threw up, she's fine. And they go, no, what really happened? And I'm like, how to explain that? And I text Dr. Ryan, you really changed the course of her life. Right? I text him half an hour later. You know what he said? He texted me back, I'm still parked in front of the birth center, honoring the power of chiropractic, because he couldn't drive. And at 10 a.m. that day, baby Sophia, we didn't go to the hospital, we're back home. So I just want to pause for a moment in the name of my wife, myself, and Sophia, and now my baby Phoenix, my baby boy. I just want to thank you for teaching me a principle that I didn't know existed. So thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. A couple of days later, I don't know if it ever happened, when you go through a struggle in life, our struggle with her, my wife, was many years, almost 4 years of waiting, of the body healing. A movie started going strong in my mind, everything that we did. And I had this huge breakthrough. And here's the breakthrough, is that when we decide to go to the natural route, to have a Sophia birth center in San Diego, they recommend us to take a class. And the class was an 8-week class, go in the evening, 3 hours, every Wednesday, to learn about the natural birth process. And in this class, we had 10 couples. And the first day of the class, they ask, why you were here in a birth center? And they say, we don't want to go the medical route. 10. Right? Now, out of the 10 couples, only one dad, only one mom, and only one baby were under chiropractic care. And the question I have for you is why? Why? And the second question I have for you is this: what are you going to do about it? So that's why I'm here. Not a chiropractor, but I know I can help you elevate that story, that message that you have. Does that make sense, everybody? Yes? All right. So when it comes to storytelling in the context of any business, including chiropractic, I believe I like to teach communication. There's 3 stories you're going to be able to tell. How many stories? 3. Come on, guys. How many stories? 3. So write it down.